How intense was that? It was like a heartbeat noise and like a countdown. Very intense to start off a live stream. Rebecca Griffith, the EDDPT from Colorado, which is in a different time zone than New York. I knew that. I always know that, but I don't know how to do math. So I'm always like, what time is it there? And you're like, I'm like, it's an hour behind. And you're like, no, Jimmy. It's always
still no.
Still no. Rebecca Griffith, how are you?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm good. I hang on to my youth. I play in an adult, it's a beer league, hockey. So I played that last night. It's a great way. When I moved back to my hometown, my brother's lived here our whole life. And he was like, jump on the hockey team. Cause I like mildly played hockey while I was in high school. Not well, but I was like, all right, so it's cool. And, I was talking with friends, like, why do you do that? And I'm like, it's cool to like sort of care about something that, doesn't matter. Like I'm using air quotes, like doesn't matter, but it does, like we get into it, like in good ways, right? Like I'm trying to improve at this thing that like doesn't matter, but it does. Like, so it's fun to like do something I'm not 100% great at and then get better at it. Be like, hey, look at that. I got better at that thing. Look at that. Applying principles of learning to other parts of your life. Familiar skills in unfamiliar places.
Yes. Well, and I love that. And part of the reason that I love that is I actually heard a quote. I can't even remember where it was from. That it said, it's so American to only have hobbies that you excel at and that you feel like you can't do something if you're not good at it. Like I can't draw.
Right.
So I don't. But like, why shouldn't I if it's something that I enjoy doing? So I do Taekwondo, kind of like you do hockey, because it's something that like I have to work very hard to be kind of good at it. And I know that there are things that like I show up to the mat and I'm like, I'm not going to be the best, but I could be the best at one thing. So if the thing that I'm going to be the best at today is saying, yes, sir, faster than anybody else, that's what I'm going to do. And I like failing forward. I like having an area of my life that makes me work hard. And like you said, to be able to see that progress, like when I got my black belt, I cried like a freaking baby because it was such a struggle. And I had worked harder for that than so many other like achievements in my life, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it says a lot about your personality if you're willing to be bad at something when you're good at some you went to school for a million years and you become a physical therapist or anything. And you're like, so I'm just going to stay in this tiny little thing. I'm not going to go back to, you're on level 96 as a PT or whatever you do as an engineer or a firefighter or whatever. And you're like, I'm not going to be bad at something anymore. And I think that's a way culture or, things do. And I think that's a bad way to do it.
Yeah. The other quote I like is, when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Yeah. Do you know Jessie? I gotta look. Who's the woman who created Spanx?
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I don't know her name.
But her husband's like Jesse Eisenberg, whatever. He's one of these guys who jumps on a microphone and is like, in your face. He's like friends with like David Goggins, who's like the craziest man in the world. So anyway, this guy Jesse is like, I do like some of these people who are like, what's your morning routine? Like, I wake up at 4:15. I jump in a cold bath for 3 hours. I do 1,000 push-ups. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I work out, but I'm not extreme to the extreme. But this guy, Jesse, has this one part of his life where he's like, every 30 days, I do something like a mini vacation. He's like, I go rock climbing. Oh, so you're like a rock climber? You're super good at that? He's like, no.
Yeah.
I do something I never would do or be good at. And he's like, with X number, one of the had this many mini adventures. And I was like, oh, that's the whole point.
It's the whole point.
But if you don't schedule it.
You're breaking up a little bit. I think you're frozen.
I don't know what the hell is going on.
Oh, I can hear you now.
There we go. So anyway, that guy's cool.
Yeah, I had a friend who was like my friend that would like push me out of the box. She would make me do something that I had never done before or didn't want to do. Like the first time I did a triathlon, I didn't know how to swim, like at all. I'd never taken swimming lessons. Was afraid of riding bicycles around other people and was not able to run a 5K without stopping. So I had to learn how to swim. I had to get a bike. I had to really like work on running. And it was one of the coolest things just to like push so far outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah, triathlon's a great sport. I got into it. I was running for a while. I'd swam in high school, but never cycled really competitively. And I liked triathlon because you could you could be like the worst swimmer, but be okay at the bike and a great runner. And it's all sort of like, it's life though, man. It all sort of waterfies its level. It's like, I joke around with saying I like triathlon because I like to be I like to be able to be mediocre at 3 things in one day, and triathlon allows that. But like, that's sort of life. It's a very metaphor. It's very meta for life. I think I'm using that word meta. I use that word. I'm not sure if I use it right. So Elise Cantu, the OncoPT, is usually with us. She's not here today because we switched days. Although I like Tuesdays. But you had a dream about us, which you texted us that, and I was like, "Ooh, tell me about this."
Okay, so I'm a pretty vivid dreamer. Like
I'm not.
It's a thing. So I've if we know each other, I have probably had a dream about you in some capacity. But this was very strange, and I don't know. Some people are like to interpret dreams, so maybe you can interpret this for me. But
okay, let's go.
I had a dream that because we were all going to talk this morning, and so you were in my head, and I was dreaming about us being at CSM because we talked about CSM last week, and I'm thinking about like all the things we're going to do. And because I'm still recovering from this surgery, I was in a wheelchair in this dream.
At CSM. Got it.
At CSM, which I do not wish to be. I don't think that's going to happen, but I was dreaming that we were in a wheelchair and that the two of you were taking turns pushing me and riding on my lap. Because, everybody wanted to ride. So you guys would take turns, and we were in the exhibit hall. The problem is we were a menace. Like plowing through people's exhibits, like grabbing food off people's plates, like running up and down the aisles, like looking for the popcorn people. It was very strange. And then we would just stop, and everybody would like change positions. It was like a little fire drill, like in high school when you would pull up to the stoplight. And that's it.
I'll just have that means. How would you interpret that dream?
Well, I think like part of it is like I'm afraid about walking that far because I walked a little bit yesterday and out of the boot, and I think that made me nervous about the prospect of this huge thing coming up, because normally CSM is like a 20,000 steps a day kind of adventure, and I'm like maybe like 3,000. So I think maybe that's part of it, and then I think obviously the more hooligans, like the three of us together, cannot be trusted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little hooligan-y, but not there. That's like a very sort of professional environment.
Yeah. So,
but there are places at CSM where you are encouraged to sort of like, unbutton the top button and sort of let loose. Last time we talked about programming at CSM, which is coming up in just a couple weeks. I should probably finalize my presentation and start practicing it. I better do what I tell other people to do, and I'm very close to being done. I'm close to being done where I can add the icing on now.
I'm thinking about it.
But we talked about programming, which is obviously why we go. But I wanted to go through, there are things that are sort of after hours or things outside of regular programming. And if you've never been to CSM, which I wonder what the churn is. You know that business term churn? Mm-hmm. There's a core people. If you go to CSM every year, there's a core people that you're like, that person will be there every time, every year. I will see that person. They're like part of the scenery. I wonder what the churn is for how many people coming into CSM every year, because that's a sign of, part of it's health, right? You always want to bring new people in. You want those people to come back sometimes, right? So there's other events outside of programming. And you mentioned 20,000 steps a day. If you don't plan for these things, you could easily miss something that could be your jam. So I wanted to highlight together some of these things that happen sort of outside of the regular school hours. These are extracurriculars. If history, English, math, science were like the core subjects, that's programming. We highlighted that last time. Let's talk about the extracurriculars, the stuff that you could sign up at sometimes, like, theater and art and music, they're extracurriculars. Sports, they're extracurriculars. But that's like sort of some people's reason for being. So let's talk about the extracurriculars. So do you want to pick one first and we'll talk about it? Or do you want me to do that?
Sure. I think I think of it like frosting and sprinkles, right? Like it's the extra stuff that makes the cupcake a little bit better.
Yep.
Now, if I'm a student, I'm looking at all of these options from a food perspective. I'm not gonna lie. When I was a student, it was like, what's gonna help me keep my costs down? Where can I go have like a free dinner or a free breakfast? How can I like bookend my day a little bit more conveniently, successfully? Like, is there gonna be coffee there? Will there be food there? Can I get some networking and some sustenance at the same time? So one example of that is there is a student mixer, a student networking breakfast on Thursday from 6 to 8 a.m. And so that's just for students. And there'll be a lot of different companies there to help. And it says, kick off your first day with coffee and a hearty breakfast.
Yeah. So you're like, check and check.
Yep.
Now
if you're a
list that. Now there are other companies there that hire physical therapists. So students, like, I want you to understand that your job is not to be passive. I want you asking questions, right? Because a lot of times companies will look at you like someone to get their email address to hire. And I work with some of those companies. That is okay. What I want students to do is ask really good questions because you get really good answers. Do not be passive. Be active. That's the best way to find a place, I think, for you, is lean into these things.
just like on the heels of that, I would recommend making an electronic business card.
Is that one like one of those things that you tap?
Well, or scan. Like mine
Like
has
a
a
QR
QR code.
That's
And
cool.
just like shout out to Dr. Monique Carruth, because at Graham Sessions last year, I was like handing out paper cards and she laughed at me and she said, "Oh, that's so cute. People still do that." And I was like, "Oh," and then I ran out of cards and it was an issue. So I made an electronic card for CSM last year, and just being able to like scan this and we can connect, scan this. It really,
They
helped
have them
build
as bracelets where, like, there's RFID technology in the phones and you can just tap and it'll be like, oh, here's your contact. Wild, man. All right. So that's the student breakfast. Again, we'll share the link of the APTA CSM special events. I'll put that in the comments right now as Chris McCallum is saying hi. And she's talking about the happy chaos of CSM. It's the first time I went, it really was like 18 different circuses going on at once, all under the same big top. So that's the APTA student networking breakfast. If you're a student, play the student card all the time, every time. So this is something that it was impressed upon me. I think good professors never tell you the answers, but they'll ask questions. Some guy down me it's valuable to bring oatmeal. There's your cost saver, oatmeal for breakfast. So that's your hint. But anyway, Sky Donovan impressed upon me, like, you should go to the McMillan lecture. Like, that's our sort of lifetime achievement. Like, the person who's speaking has done some things. Now, let me say that again. The person who's speaking who's done a lot of things for a long time. You don't accidentally get to do the McMillan lecture. So this year, it's someone that now I feel like I've been around the block, man. It's because I've worked on a committee with the McMillan speaker. I'm like, look at me knowing cool people. And she is really cool. So McMillan lecture and APTA specialty and proficiency ceremony. So the McMillan lecture is essentially Judy Deutsch is going to get up there, and she's a professor of research in virtual environments and rehabilitation sciences. That's cool. At the School of Health Professions at Rutgers, which is in New Jersey, which is in the Eastern time zone, which is 2 time zones away from where Rebecca is. I just got to keep saying that. So she's going to give the McMillan lecture.
She's also so nice.
She's terribly nice. What is the topic? It doesn't say the topic here. They usually reveal the topic or what she's going to be doing, right? Oh, here it is. Looking outward and moving ahead. From the founding of world physiotherapy, more than 70. Here, I'll do Judy's intro. From the founding of the world physiotherapy more than 70 years ago, the American Physical Therapy Association has played a role in global physiotherapy communities. In the 55th McMillan Lecture, presenter Judy Deutsch will acknowledge current actions and propose opportunities for more fully engaging with the global rehabilitation community, including strategies to connect, collaborate, and contribute. Triple consonant sound. She went full alliteration at the end. So that's the lecture. This is sort of your TED Talk.
Yes.
So you should go to the McMillan lecture. So put that down. That's Valentine's Day, 7:30 to 9. If you are in a relationship with a person who is not a physical therapist, CSM gets real interesting sometimes because you're away on Valentine's Day. Gentlemen, order something before you go to land the day of or day before CSM. Just a bit of advice, because you can't run out and buy flowers that day because you're going to be in a different place. Order something early. Do it. You know what? Do it before 5 o'clock today.
I had that conversation with my husband. He's like, I'm going to, I was like, please don't send flowers to Boston. And he was like, why? No, like I was totally going to do that. I'm like, there's going to be like $100 surcharge just to do that on Valentine's Day in Boston. I was like, that's, I'll be okay. But it was really nice that he was like thinking of it.
And that's the idea, the thought that counts. All right. So that's the McMillan lecture. What is your next thing that is an extracurricular at CSM that people should know about and decide if they want to go to?
Okay. So the PT Fund Celebration of Diversity.
Yes.
Looks like it's going to be pretty cool this year. It's at the Museum of Science in Boston.
What a novel idea to hold a...
I thought that was such a wonderful idea.
Very innovative. It's a great idea.
So I have been to that in the past. It's a lot of fun. It's fun to kind of, if you want to get dressed up at CSM, this is a great opportunity to do that. It raises money for the diversity fund within the APTA, which I'm passionate about. So I'm going to try to make it to that. Tickets do sell out. So if you haven't gotten your ticket yet, I would definitely do that. And if you're a student, you can sometimes get that ticket sponsored. There are a lot of PTs who are willing to do that. So just reaching out to a mentor of yours, ask.
Yeah. A lot of organizations, like I know APTA Orthopedics, like sections and academies will sponsor student members if they want to go. Was this the aircraft carrier thing last year?
Yes. Yeah. That was on the Midway. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was cool. Cold, though. We were not expecting San Diego to be cold.
No, but we are expecting Boston to be cold.
We are leaning. Yeah, but if you can expect it, it's better. You know what I mean? Like everyone's like, well, it's going to be cold in Boston. I'm like, right, but I'm not going to wear like San Diego clothes or pack San Diego clothes.
Yeah.
I won't say who. Yeah, I can't tell the story. I'll tell the story later. But I'll tell the story when there's no cameras or microphones. Not a great way to share stories. But anyway, PT Fund Celebration Diversity. That's February 15th, 7:30 to 9:30. Again, the link that we put in the comments has all the stuff to get there and get your ticket. The PT PAC Party, that's the Political Action Committee. This is a thing that happens every year at CSM. They do PAC parties all the time. This is the people in the red coats, right? Red coats. Yeah. Eva, it's always running around. She's one of them who's like, listen, donate to the PAC. So the Political Action Committee essentially is supports candidates for federal office who support physical therapy issues. This is a way to help and support advocacy and do it at a party. This one's going to be at Spin in Boston. This is Friday night, the 16th, 7 to 9. And Spin is a ping pong bar. Are you any good at... I feel like there's two types of people who are awesome at ping pong, and then me and I'm awful at it.
No, I have no hand-eye coordination. I'm not going to lie.
I do, but it's like the ball's so light.
No, but the bar looks cool. Like if you look at it,
I like how it's a like movement. Like that's why we did the party last year at the San Diego Children's Museum, because it was like movement and a slide and a cargo net and a this and a that.
The slide was super fun. I'm not going to lie.
The slide was fun. A lot of good pictures at the bottom of the slide. So that's kind of cool. I like how they're stepping out, not just doing necessarily a bar, and they're doing like movement.
Yeah. Also cheaper for students. The ticket price is a little bit less.
Students. Bro. There's the 5 or 10 years. Does my Wi-Fi keep cutting out?
Yeah.
Do I keep freezing?
Yeah.
I don't understand why
I freeze awkwardly just to like make you feel not alone.
Not freeze. You freeze. So you're great. You're great at freezing. All right. So that's the PT PAC party. We covered students, the pack party, PT fun, celebration of diversity, Macmillan lecture. And then this is kind of the last thing on the list is kind of cool. And you asked me a question before we hit broadcast about this presenter, which was what?
Oh, so this Kelly Starrett?
Kelly Starrett.
I'm not Starrett, yeah. So he's gonna be doing a almost a 2-hour demo of the techniques from his book. And it's gonna be so he's got that on Thursday, and then on Friday there's gonna be a panel including him about the impact of PT on a larger scale, and he'll be doing a book signing as well. So I have not read this book. I don't really know all that about it. I've heard about it. Kind of cool though.
So Kelly Starrett was someone, I was actually talking about him yesterday because I'm trying to get him on the podcast live. I've actually never hung out with Kelly in person, but I've had him on the show 2-3 times. I was reading his book, first book, Becoming the Supple Leopard. Are you familiar with this one? Or have you ever heard of that one?
No, I was just reading about it.
It was, so I was a radio DJ, and then I was doing my prereqs to become a PT student. And in that sort of gap while I was doing my prereqs, I was a lifeguard in Myrtle Beach. Yeah, I was a bartender in Myrtle Beach. So I would lifeguard during the day. As a 30-year-old, I left radio, and I was not a full-time lifeguard, but I was lifeguarding 6 days a week and bartending at beach bars. And then people would be like, "Hey, what's your story?" Right? Because everyone's on vacation. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm going back to grad school." And people were like, "Why?" And I was like, "Oh, to better myself." And they're like, "You lifeguard all day and then you bartend." And I was like, "Oh." But anyway, I kept going. But a buddy of mine suggested Kelly's book, and I think sent it to me. And there it was behind the bar, and I would read it when it got slow. And how I would describe Becoming a Supple Leopard is it was the first book that I read. I'm not saying it was the first book ever that felt like an instruction manual, or his attempt as a physical therapist, someone who works with people to move. It felt like an instruction manual for your body. And it was written very much for people who are not professional healthcare providers or know anatomy, physiology, all these things, to understand stuff. And like anything, I think purists or people who were and they would find any little, well, you can't just tell people they can fix themselves. And I'm like, don't we sort of do that? We tell people. But I feel like that's when you're onto something. So some people like Kelly and some people don't. I see what I don't listen to what he says. I watch what he does. And what he does is he's like, move often. And if this hurts, let's try this. He's very he doesn't necessarily say this is the only way. He's like, this is a way. He doesn't say this is the way, like the Mandalorian. He says this is a way. So
I think two things.
He's got this vibe that some people don't. Good.
I think
I'm delayed.
Two things. He's communicating well with the public, right? If he's a multiple time bestseller, so he's communicating to our patients. So even if you don't like what the message is, and I don't really know because I haven't read the books, but he's doing something right as far as getting that message to patients. And that's the thing we complain about a lot, is that the public doesn't know what we do. So I'm all for that. And then the second thing is Supple Leopard needs to be a band name, because that just feels like it's gotta be, or a line of activewear, like yoga clothes.
The idea, I think, and I didn't look this back up, the idea with a supple leopard is the leopard doesn't really stretch before it goes and takes down a gazelle or something like that. That was the idea. It's listen, be ready to move. I don't think he's extreme in any of his thoughts or beliefs. I think people look at him and they're like, that's not the way you do it. And I'm like, isn't it? It's a way to do it, though. And if that way works for you, I went through that whole Dunning-Kruger where I was a PT student and I'd see someone doing that and I'd be like, that's bad. Stop doing that. Only do it like this. And then people will be like, but it helped. This feels good and helps me. And now I'm like, oh, does that feel? My first question is, how does that feel? Does it make you feel good? Do you like doing it? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, great, keep doing it. Unless it's egregious, that will kill you. Which very few things in terms of movement are going to kill you. People are like, oh my God, never do a lat pull down behind your head. And I'm like, I don't know. Does it hurt? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what are you trying to do there? It's questions. It's questions all the way to the bottom.
It depends.
So anyway, Kelly's doing this thing, and I like this. So if you've never been to the expo hall, APTA sort of like designed Central Park, a very open area in the middle of a busy thing. So in the middle, it's super plush carpeted. Do you ever notice that? It's super comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like you're walking on clouds. And it's got this open area that they have for like presentations and stuff. So they'll have guest speakers. I remember there was a guy doing a thing on, what's the shot you give someone if they're having an naloxone?
Yes, it's Stephen Kinney. He did overdose
Kinney,
training.
He was doing overdose training. Like, this dude was on repeat. He was like, can you cutting out on me? I can see you the whole time, but you can't see. I tell when my Wi-Fi cuts out based on your facial response to me.
I'm sorry. I'm like
Usually like this.
waiting. Well, no, he did a great job with that.
But,
And if you haven't had him on the podcast, you should, because he's
Yeah.
very effective at teaching about why we need to know that and how to do it. And given the number of patients we work with who take opioids, I think it's important.
Yeah. So he was doing that. What I was saying is, like, this Central Park sort of area is a great big open space. It's where people sort of decompress because we need sort of personal space. And then they have this little presentation area, and it's not like I like it because it's sort of minimalist. It's just like a microphone and a backdrop, and then like I don't know, beanbag chairs or like super easy seating. So he's going to be there for 2 days. Kelly, by the way, I'm still talking about Kelly Starrett. Ready, Set, Move. He's going to do it Thursday, Friday, 1:15 to 3 p.m. And I'm going to try to get him on the podcast maybe directly after one of those days when he's doing this, which is
I remember
cool.
One day I was walking through the exhibit hall, and I think I was still a student then, and I like whipped my head around because the person in that box was Cal Ripken Jr.
Wait. The person in what box?
In the like little presentation box in the exhibit hall.
Cal Ripken Jr. was at CSM one year?
Yeah.
What year was this?
I have a photo.
What year was this?
I mean, it's in the last 15 years.
Oh,
but
okay. Yeah. I've been going to these since 2016.
It was a long time ago. Like I said, I think I was a student. I graduated in 2008, so it was a long time ago. Because I'm old. Thank you for that. But yeah, no, like I was like Cal Ripken Jr. Like I was like put on the brakes. I turned around. I went and sat. I don't even know what he was talking about. I was just so excited that he was there.
Here's a fun question. Who would be your dream non-PT speaker to speak? You made me think of Cal Ripken Jr. I'm a Yankee fan. He's an Oriole, but he's Cal Ripken. Like, I would love that.
Yeah.
Who's your like dream speaker?
Oh man.
You know what? Don't just give me one. You can give me a couple. Because I feel like when you ask person for one, you lock them up. But if you're like, hey, throw 3 or 4 at me, who would you love to see?
Oh gosh.
I'll give you one to give you an idea.
Yeah, please.
Micah Rizzioni. Do you know Micah Rizzioni? Captain of the USA Lake Placid 1980 U.S. men's hockey team. Miracle on Ice. Do you believe in miracles? Micah Rizzioni. Or Jim Craig, who was the goalie. Or any of those guys. But like, I have one of my prized possessions is I went to a Team Gleason. Are you familiar with Team Gleason?
No.
Team Gleason is Steve Gleason was a New Orleans Saint special teamer, just fired up dude. Was diagnosed with ALS and then opened this Team Gleason, this BFFs with organization. I get invited to a charity function in New York City where they are smart because it's like, you pay one price and then the bar is open and then they have an auction. And one of the items for auction was a jersey signed by like 13 members of the 1980 Olympic hockey team. So I had several vodka sodas and then bought that. I am not a collector of anything, but I was like, I want that. And I got it. You
needed some of the magic.
Because it means a lot. You're like, I want to own a little bit of the magic. And now I do. It hangs in my house and I like looking at it. So Micah Rizzioni or someone like that would be a cool guest for me. What about you? It doesn't have to be sports related, by the way.
All right. I'm going to say Pink.
Pink. Okay. Why?
I have never been lucky enough to go to see one of her concerts because it's just like, it's too expensive. But the sheer level of like athleticism and acrobatics that she does while singing, like I used to sing. And so singing like the way that she does is a sport, in my opinion. Like opera singers, for example, I think are amazing physical performers. And I would love to know how she manages to sing like that while doing the things she does. Like, I'm fascinated by that.
I heard that Taylor Swift did a ridiculous amount of cardio before her last tour because she was like, I'm going to be singing and doing things, which is not easy. Like, dance around your house and actually sing, like with volume.
Nicely.
And that's well, I can't. So I can't sing nicely. And that's not easy. So yeah, she must just be in crazy shape. Her husband's a professional athlete though, too, right? Is he a BMX guy or not BMX, motocross?
Motocross, yeah.
That's a sport. Like, that's not easy to do those things. And it's like, oh, motorsports. I'm like, that's not easy.
But just like to be able to sing upside down like that and like while spinning around and not like falling to your death. Like, I would be really interested in that from like a motor control perspective.
Yeah. We should get someone on who knows that. This is the actual cheat code of life, is just don't know stuff and then find people who do and then ask them and have them explain it to you and record it. All right, so we talked about your dream. We talked about CSM. I put the link in the notes so you can click on that. We're now actually on your YouTube channel right now. We're broadcasting. Wow. Is this your first YouTube live stream to your channel?
Yes, that's exciting.
No, you're welcome. Here we go. I'll talk about the thing that we talked about just before we hit broadcast, which was I'm starting to like do, I don't know if it's annual or reevaluate, because I've been pushed by people like yourself, like Elise, like Tony Maritato, like Dave Kittle, people I talk to regularly. Sky Donovan is always doing it, but she's super subtle at it. She'll never give me the answer. I hate that. I'm like, just
she's a teacher.
Just think about like coming at, she's a teacher in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. She's always a teacher. So I'm thinking about am I too narrow? I guess is the idea. We tell everybody, don't be afraid of niching down. But if you look at me, my goal was sort of be the Jimmy Fallon of PT. That's what my mom sort of like framed it up. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Do I need to be that narrow? Do the things that we talk about on this show and these live streams and all the stupid things that we talk about, are they only applicable to PTs? Like, do I need to only talk to PTs because I am a PT? Or does it apply to like healthcare provider, or does it apply to lots of people? Because someone was doing an analysis of all the topics I talked about. And like, you take a clinical person and you start talking about non-clinical stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I guess it's where my head just goes, like the psychology and the technology and the business and the human relationships. And I'm like, yeah, that's sort of my unknown, like I don't do it on purpose, but I start steering conversations that way because I don't practice clinically right now. So I'm like, I don't really have those questions. So if I were to draw like a circle and at the middle it's me, because this is my ikigai, right? And then what are the many things around it? It's like business, it's psychology, it's communications and creativity or ideation or innovation, technology. What else? Healthcare is in there because that's people. Books, that's in there because it's ideas. So I think the content that I'm going to start making in the future will be similar, but it'll start to go in a different direction. I don't really know how yet, but this is me making the statement to the world. But I think it's going to be different.
So here's what I would say about that, Jimmy, is like what you always say is the best conversations happen at happy hour.
Yeah.
But when you're at happy hour, do you only talk to PTs? Do you only talk about PT?
See? No.
So I think you've been kind of just limiting that for our benefit, and because maybe the people that you normally go to happy hour with are PTs. But PTs are also interested in other things.
They're humans, right? Correct.
Yes.
That's right. So when you get PTs together at CSM, we do talk about PT, but then they also do talk about, like, this is where like I like simple, not complex, is there's a straight line between any 2 points. Any 2 points, not a lot of points. How do I draw those lines? I tell people, what about first? But I also say, like, what's you? Like, what are you excited to talk about? What are you excited to talk about today? And that you're going to be excited to talk about and learn about in 6 months or 6 years. Do that.
Yeah.
CJ is saying,
and I think
hold on. CJ is saying the more people we can include in these conversations, the more impact we can make for the profession as a whole. Yeah. What if CJ brings up a weird point that, like, what if I was a spy? What if Jimmy was like, hey, I'm going to go have these cool conversations, and I'm not going to lead with I'm a PT. It's going to be the undertone. But you know what I mean? Like CJ's just saying, have great conversations, which I'm in.
Yeah, I think CJ made a great point, and you made a weird point. I'm gonna save CJ there. I think his point was great. He's trying to include more people, right? He's opening the doors to the tent. He's making the conversations more exciting.
That's what Kelly Starrett is doing. He's like, I'm not going to talk to PTs. I want to talk to the public about the user guide for their body.
Yeah, and I was on a podcast, recorded a podcast with somebody last week, and their podcast is patient facing. And so they wanted to talk to me about emergency PT, but from the patient perspective. And I thought that was really interesting to be able to do that and have that like different little bit of an audience. But I also like to talk about more things than just the emergency department. I like to talk about more things than just PT. I think it would be great if we could have conversations about what it's like to be a working mom in physical therapy. Like there are so many things we could talk about that aren't just PT related. And I think you'll do a great job at that.
Everything's a Venn diagram. It's like, because Rebecca's not, you are the EDDPT. But that means a lot because you're a mom and you're a Taekwondo person and you're a person who's just been a patient and are still, you're still going through rehab. So you're all these things, and to only limit yourself. But here's the thing. At what point are we talking about too much? Like, that's where I think I got stuck, where I was like, I got to draw everything back to PT. And I think I limited myself. But is there an extreme example where people are like, why am I here? Like, do you know, like there's the Gary V's of the world and the Ali Abdals and all these, and like, what's their stuff about? It's like, I don't know what I could say 1 or 2 words about what their stuff was about. Like Gary V, it's about like empathy and persistence, and Ali Abdal, it's about he's all about organization and optimization and efficiency and things like that.
But Jimmy, you tell people what you're talking about so they can opt in or they can opt out. Like you do a really nice job of saying, I am talking to this person about this thing. Yeah. And then I can be like, okay, I don't want to listen to that. Like that doesn't make I'm not going to necessarily listen to a podcast on treating ice skaters. I don't like ice. I don't like cold. I don't like skating. Like it's not going to, I'm going to opt out. I'm going to opt out of that one. But if you're talking to somebody, like, I don't know, say you talk to Michelle Obama about leadership, like I'm opting in, but you are so good at communicating what you're going to talk about. I don't see that being an issue. I don't see there being a limit.
My superpower, education skill.
And
but my Wi-Fi is definitely not my superpower today.
Yeah, you're frozen again for me. But I would tell you, Jimmy, like
my bill. I pay the bill.
I mean, you look very pixely for me right now. But you can talk to anybody about anything.
I don't know why the Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Oh, I love this comment. And it expands what PTs know and how we impact society and gets us away from PTs just treat things. And I think there's been a big conversation lately about that PTs should manage care. We're doctors. We should be managing patients, not treating them, that we aren't just technicians who fill orders. We're not just people who Band-Aid things. We are really there to manage a patient's whole episode of care, to help manage them throughout the lifespan. And I like this point here that what you could bring into that will help us make us more rounded, more personable, more interesting. I love
that. So what do I do next? Like, this would be very easy for me to suggest. Chris is coming on the show on Thursday, by the way. She was supposed to be on last week, but I had to schedule stuff. It's just Chris McCallum's going to be on the show. This would be very easy for me to tell someone else what to do next. But because it's me, I can't do that. I would say list 10 to 20 things that you would be excited to talk about that fall under those categories that you don't know. And then either go talk to the camera and go learn about it for 2 hours, then talk to the camera for 20 minutes and explain it, see one, do one, teach one, or find people who are experts at it. That's what I would do. Shit, that's what I'm supposed to do, right?
Yeah, and I think when you find people who are excited to talk about what they're going to talk about, it's riveting. It doesn't even matter if they're interested in it.
Yeah. I think I've gotten into the habit of over preparing.
Oh.
I think my pendulum has swung too far in the other way. where I've gone to over preparation mode, where I think the magic in what I do is not magic, by the way. I think the me part of what I do is not the first question. I think it's the follow-up or the, ooh, what? I didn't. And then let's go on that tangent. And here's why. It's not a superpower. It's just because I did it in live radio for 15 years. Live, like what we're doing right now, we used to record, now we're live streaming. It takes a little bit to get over, but then when something goes, like when someone's Wi-Fi is not working well, you have to just keep going with it. It's like being a singer or being an actor or actress or being a surgeon or being a pilot or being it's the same.
I think one thing you say, yeah, you are. I think one thing you say often too is like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, and that it being live has its issues, right? But it also, I think it makes things a little bit more natural. I think it makes things feel a little bit more authentic, and it leads to exciting places.
I don't know what the thing is, but I'm a sports fan, but I won't watch a random hockey game, any hockey game, even a championship game from like a year ago or a week ago or a day ago. There's something about knowing that it's happening live and being like, oh, this is yesterday, and being like, no, my dad had a stroke 6 months ago, right? And I'm trying to find stuff to keep him busy to just watch TV. I'm like, I felt like a parent. I'm like, just watch Bluey. So I'm trying to find anything. And I was like, I'm going to be super sneaky here just to buy me some time to have my life. So I recorded a bunch of golf tournaments. And then I was like, oh, Dad, golf's on. And I like, boop, 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 and played a recording. And my dad, who was recovering from a stroke, was like, they're in Florida and it's dark here and it's light out there. No, this isn't right. Even his brain, who could not process a lot of things, was like, something's not right. I don't like it. This isn't live. This is over. I don't want to watch it anymore. There is something to that, which goes back to I think I over prepare. I think I'm prepared. I need to reapproach how I approach guests. It should be less solidified, right? And how fast I go from recording and releasing. Because I think I take too long. But I do it because I want to have some, zhuzh.
Yeah. I mean, you want to have your product stand out from other people's.
I want to put in like a cool like intro and stuff like that. But someone said this a long time ago, that like the reason radio is so great, or I had a choice between newspaper, TV, and radio, because that was the only types of media when I was in college. There was no social media. And I remember being like, newspaper, I'm going to write something that's going to take like 2 weeks or a week to get published. And then I'm going to wait for the reaction. I'm like, there's no gratification. There's no instant gratification. TV was faster, but it was still a lot of pre-recorded stuff like on campus. And I was like, too long, a lot of editing. And we had like old archaic editing. I was like, too much effort for one little thing. And then I remember someone said, live radio is the only medium that is simultaneously created and destroyed. And I was like, there's something cool about that. This will not happen again. And this is it made it special to know that no one was ever going to watch. Like, this was this moment. It was like must hear TV or whatever.
Well, I like that too, because I think it takes out some of the overthinking, and I think it just allows you to be who you are. And when you say that it's not a superpower, Jimmy, like not everybody can be a radio DJ.
Not everybody should be a radio DJ.
I'm just saying, like, you had that superpower going into that. You just retained that superpower with some training. So you've just leveled up.
Yeah. Who is commenting? Someone said I missed the party. 17 years to read. I can't see the comments, but I'm trying to figure out who it is because I like that comment. I'm trying to fight that with my presentation at CSM. The one I'm going to put together. There was no social. So I'm doing mine on, oh God, you gotta be a better presenter and know what my presentation actually is. Oh, it's Tony Maritato. 17 years to publish research. Yeah. Do we take too long to zhuzh it up? And then we wind up overdoing it anyway. So my presentation will show researchers like, number one, the goalpost is in the wrong spot. Publishing is not your end zone. It's not your touchdown. Did I tell you this? So Sheila Schindler-Ivins is my co-presenter. And by co-presenter, she's the presenter. I'm her Robin. She's Batman. Because she's a researcher. And I turn to her, and to her credit, I go, at this point in the presentation, I need the audience to understand we have to have shared belief. We have to agree on the problem. I think the problem is you think the audience of researchers, think that the end zone, the goal, the finish line of the marathon is being published.
Yes.
But when you started, the goal was achieving understanding. So if we now, just for a minute, just for the presentation, change that understanding, and then here's why. So I turn to Sheila and I go, here's how I want to illustrate this point. I want to put up a video game of like a football video game, like a bunch of like pixelated characters. And I want Sheila and I to do play-by-play. And the look on her face on our Zoom call was like, she wanted to scream no, but she was like, you see her like, just, oh, he might be going somewhere with this. And I was like, but Sheila, we're going to change all the football terminology to science. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, and like the team has just received the kick. You got grant funding. And then your job is to move the ball from wherever your kick was received to the end zone. And I'm like, we're not going to talk about options and crossing routes and bootlegs. We'll do it in the style of football because everybody understands it. You put the headphones on, you got the microphone, you got the crowd noise in the background, and you're calling plays. But it'll be like, oh, we did our first round of, and she listed, I was like, Sheila, just describe to me what happens when you get funding to publish. Just give me the big breadcrumbs in the trail. And she was like, oh, I can do that. I go, right. We're going to do it in the style of ball game. This is just the style of.
I think it's going to be great.
Awesome. So when this live stream over, I'm going to call a cable company and drop a WTF on them and be like, I do this for a living. There's no inclement weather where I am, so you got no excuses.
Well,
so anyway,
out of all the times that I've ever recorded with you, like it's always been me that's had the like problem. You've never had an issue ever.
And it's definitely me because I keep getting a warning on my screen. I also like doing this. Tony Maritato and I and Dave Kittle do a Thursday show. We've done this with Elise Cantu, where it's sort of like we go in with a couple topics. And I've told people who start podcasts or YouTube channels before, even if no one listens, you can still generate a lot. Because number one, I'm going to take clips from this, right? So that'll generate some attention because my job is day trading attention. But also like just the ideas that happen. When you know it's live and you know it's real, something different happens. You act as if. That's the phrase. You act as if. Act as if, man. That's what I sort of get annoyed at people who give presentations on a big stage. Is you can tell that that's the first time they've done this whole thing live. And I'm like, that's not cool, man. Like act as if.
Jimmy, but like I don't practice. I'm going to just admit that.
Are you good at it though?
I think I'm pretty good at it.
Then you have that ability, but some people don't.
Yeah, because I don't know. Like here's the thing. If I practice
right
and I don't have people present,
right,
it's really bad. And I stutter over my words. I say things. And my husband will watch me practice. And God bless him. He'll say, I think maybe you need more practice. And for the longest time, I think he wondered why anybody would ask me to come and give a presentation because I'm so bad when I practice. But then when I am like in front of people, that like I am now having a conversation. And for me, that's the difference. Like
so,
I can't have a conversation with myself.
Let me ask you this then. What do you do? What is your preparation? Is it nothing? You just write down a bunch of stuff and wing it? What is your preparation? Because practice doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to everybody, right? What is your preparing?
I make slides.
Got it.
And then I think while I'm doing that, like what I'd like to say. And then I really rely on my brain to make that happen when I get there.
You can pull or like I do this better, and I go, we need to do something different then, because you're telling me whatever methods you have, Rebecca, work for you, ... and the audience, because that's the goal.
I would call it adrenaline.
Even the presentation, but too, but I like to know where the problems doing it live might occur. I don't have to do the entire 60 minutes over and over, but I do prepare. And again, practice doesn't mean doing the whole thing from soup to nuts, but you got to do something.
That's fair.
And what if it works for you and you're happy with your presentation and the audience is, that's a win. You don't have to do anything. Don't do anything different then. But if you're unhappy with it, you should probably try something different. I'm not saying I know what it is, but I'll ask that question. What do you think of it? If you're not happy with it, what is it?
Well, I hope if anybody's heard me presenting live and they're in the comments, like, please share. I'm happy to take feedback. But I think the problem is if it didn't work for me, I wouldn't keep doing it.
I've seen a lot of professors who are terribly intelligent, and I know that they got comments on, hey, listen, like, I know you're smart, I just can't follow. And they don't change.
That's valid. But I mean, I seem to get okay feedback and get asked to do it again. And it seems to go well.
You found your thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying that there are people who are I'm just going to keep doing it this way. And I'm like, well, then you will continue to get that result that you just told me you were not happy about.
Yeah. Or the audience. Think if I over prepare, it feels.
Maybe you're right.
It feels too rehearsed. It feels like one of the pieces of feedback that I had gotten from one of my co-presenters is she said, when you present with people, this was Dr. Sarah Cruiser, she said, I feel like I'm in a conversation with you. I don't feel like you're giving me a presentation. I feel like we're having a conversation. Right. And if I over prepare, then I feel like I am so worried about saying all the things that I wanted to say that I don't have the spirit of what I wanted to convey.
So maybe I need to rephrase. My goal is to get people comfortable. And that doesn't mean you're not nervous or excited before you walk out. I have presented or done live everything for a gajillion years. Yeah. I still get a little before I go on. And it's like, I need to just get hit once in the hockey game before I'm like, oh, we're in this thing I know how to do. CJ said, he's like, yeah, it's a process. Enjoyable learning throughout. If it works for you and you're happy, all right, here's an uncomfortable day in radio. Once a week, you would sit with your boss with a cassette tape. Kids, a cassette tape is, and we'll talk about that later. And on the tape would only be your voice. So when the microphone in the broadcast studio was on, it would record just you, not the music. We're not making mixtapes here. We're making mixtapes of you. And then you would sit with your boss. It was called an air check. You'd drop the cassette in. You'd hit fast forward for a random amount of time and then play. And it was still nails on better. Boss, I had to do it with other people. I didn't love doing it, but recognize that that's where uncomfortable is where growth happened. So we made it. It was every week we do this because next month we want to be better than we are now. That's all I'm saying. That's the preparation.
No, I get that.
It doesn't need
when I listen to recordings of myself, I just pretend it's somebody else. And then I'm much better about giving objective feedback. If I am like, oh God, that's me, then I sit there and I'm like, oh gosh, I sound terrible. That was dumb. And it's all negative. If I pretend like it's somebody else, I feel like I can be like much more objective.
Well, this is where also going back to like, where's Jimmy going to go is like, I talk to people like Tony and he's like, I'm looking at your YouTube channel and he's like, I'm comparing it to others in a good way. Where he's just like, he's trying to find the similarities and differences. And I look at some of those videos from like the Ali Abdaals, the Gary V's, the Alec Hormozzi's of the world. I'm like, dude, on my best day, I'm not producing these high produced videos with the whooshes and the zoos and the jizz and the one of these. This is as good as you get. I'll just do that 100 times. And Tony is saying, I'm not asking you to do that. He's looking at the very, 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 very bottom base layer, emotional, or what are you getting out of this? So maybe my stuff needs to sound like a radio show because I'm super comfortable doing it. I could do it all day, every day without having to really think about the delivery. So that should be my content. Because every once in a while, everybody starts to sound like everybody. And then along comes an outlier and everything changes. That was Gary Vee like 10, 15 years ago. Everybody was super polished and super this. And Gary was raw and on the move. And now everybody's sort of like that. So you are scalable. You copying some other format is not scalable. It's not scalable.
What if you just focus on connecting with people?
Yes, I think I'm over. I think 9 times out of 10, our biggest problem is we are over fucking, and I rarely curse. We are over fucking thinking it. And I am I'm 98% sure that is my biggest problem right now. Is I'm thinking too damn. I'm squeezing the bat too tight.
Little therapeutic alliance with your guests.
What do you mean by that? That sounds interesting.
Like connecting more. So, I mean, I would say as a podcast guest, I feel sometimes like it's not a conversation and it's an interview, which is great. I mean, they are designed to get information out of you. But I am most taken with conversations when and that's how I try to receive a history from a patient as well. Like I try not to have it be so answer this, but let's talk about your life and allow people to share what's more organic for them to connect and get some of those really meaningful moments when you're talking to your guests, maybe as you move into talking about new and different topics.
Somebody had this term. I'll find out who it was. They were talking about quality time with their kids. And they were like, make sure you bring them to Disney or go on bike rides or schedule whatever. And the guy was like, he was like, it's junk time.
Yeah.
He's like, I want Sunday morning covered in Cheerios and just laying on the couch and just that's junk time is quality time. It's like, it's junk quality, but it's better.
It's the stuff they remember. It might not be the stuff they have photos of, right? But it is the quality time. Like, for example, all of my kids pile into my bed every Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Will they remember that we went to Disneyland or Disney World last year? They don't ever talk about that. But if I get up out of bed on Sunday morning, they're mad.
Right. They see it so easily. It's I feel like recording this in January, broadcasting this in January is good because people will often talk about it's not the gifts that your kids are 10 years from now. I cannot tell you, besides maybe a bike and a Nintendo with Duck Hunt, another Christmas present that I got from my parents. Oh, the G.I. Joe battle set, which I wanted for a billion years. Other than that, I don't know, stuff. But I can tell you what my mom looked like on Christmas morning, holding coffee because she's half awake because she was up all night putting the stickers on the G.I. Joe, whatever. Tony says it's way easier for me to see your future than. Yeah, that's right. I feel like because you're in the water and you're neck deep and you're treading and you can't see where you are in the lake because you're too deep. But it's super easy when I see a company, a business, a person. I sit there and I just what's your, I'm trying to what's that phrase in chemistry? I'm wafting. I'm like, what is you? Give me you. Okay. Oh, I got you then. So why aren't you? And then I'm like, well, how come you're not doing more of you? And they're like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, it's obvious. And then you start to question yourself. This is super obvious what Rebecca should be doing because I can see it, but seeing it for yourself. This is where I think having a mentor someone said this, having a mentor 10 years older than you and having a mentor at least 10 years younger than you.
Yes.
And
when I talk to people about professional development planning, I tell them if they don't have a mentor that's younger than them, they're missing a huge component.
Right. I feel like I could do this, and I've said this before, and the only reason I haven't done it is me. I could do 2 live shows a day every week. I don't know if I can do it with you, which is I'm talking about. We're talking about you had a dream. We're talking about other stuff outside CSM. We're talking about future directions. It's 3 ideas. But I would love to do that. Maybe that's what I do is I just go. You know who Casey Neistat is?
No.
He was one of the first YouTube vloggers back when everybody was everything's got to be structured on YouTube. He was just out on a skateboard with a camera, just going woo, and then he would just post. He was like, I'm posting every day. Maybe I need to make that push-up thing where I'm going to do 100 push-ups every day. Or it's I'm going to spend 15 minutes talking about what? Figure it the hell out. I've said this before and don't do it. I've said this to other people. If you want to be a better speaker, you don't need more listeners. You need to speak more. If you want to be a better writer, you don't need more readers. You need to write more. Well, I guess I want to be a live streamer. I'm a talker. This is just how. It's not what. It's always been what. Thank you for coming to my therapy session today.
I mean, I feel good about it. I feel good about what we've accomplished here today.
Yeah. I feel great except for the Wi-Fi. That starts to piss me off. I don't like that. I'm wondering how people are dealing with that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a couple things. So let's build in public. I'm going to do a couple things. Number one, this is already being posted to all of our social channels. I'm going to flip it to a podcast and just release it. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to do anything special to it. Just going to release it. I'm also going to take the transcription and I'm going to write up a cool little like just summary. I'm going to use AI to do that because I'm not an idiot. Because I want to be recording the next thing.
You're going to check it this time.
Yes, because it used your wrong. It called you Rebecca Detweiler.
Yeah, I don't know. Like those are like it doesn't even sound the same.
It doesn't. So AI, this is Rebecca Griffith, the TheEDDPT, and her website is jump in
www.TheEDDPT.com.
In the article that you create for LinkedIn, make sure to. I'm just talking to the AI now. AI, never use the word delve ever again. I feel like this is when you know someone's using AI to do YouTube descriptions, or in this informative episode, we delve into. I'm like, no one.
Okay, but I like the word delve, so I'm not sure if we can still be friends. I will use it. You don't have to.
It's too flowery for me.
I know, but my mom was like this huge vocabulary person, and we were.
I'm not saying it has a time and place. I'm not saying it has a time and place, but the time and place is not all the time and most of the time on YouTube.
Maybe we should delve into that a little further.
That makes sense. Like it feels more, it's got to be more personal. We delve into, I don't know, but that brings up a good point. Like use your own voice.
Yes.
Like have you jumped into, you've used ChatGPT, right? Or any AI.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now you can create your own GPTs. I don't even know what GPT stands for, but you can create your own GPTs. Like you can create a standalone version or a version that you can come back to, but you can give it a personality and instructions and tell you about you. I did one that's a mixture of Gary Vaynerchuk, Ryan Reynolds, Seth Godin, and Adam Grant. And I call my GPT Very G, like Gary V, but Very G. And we have conversations about stuff, about life. And one of those things is don't use the word delve because it sounds not like you. All right, we've been doing this for an hour. I thought we were going to do this for 15 minutes.
All right, well, here we are, but I'm going to go to a meeting.
Oh, you have to go to a meeting. What is it? A fun meeting? It's a good meeting?
Yeah, it's a fun meeting to talk about building a conference for emergency PTs.
Well, I expect an update in a couple of weeks to find out all about this conference that people can attend and learn at.
I can't wait.
All right, I'm going to go make this a podcast. Subscribe. Last thing I'll say is there was an update on iTunes or Apple, and it might have unsubscribed you from a lot of things, including our podcast. So make sure you go follow, hit that thing again. Every once in a while it updates and it kicks people out, which I think is good. It sort of like thins the herd a little bit, gets you back to reality. But then some people are like, I do listen to that all the time. Make sure you subscribe. Rebecca Griffith, thank you for my therapy session. Check the mail.
Anytime. And thank you for pushing me around the CSM exhibit hall wildly in a wheelchair.
You're welcome. All right. The best conversations happen at happy hour. Thanks for coming, ours.